because this book is, I'm not sure. You know what? I'll Google it right now.
All right. Be back after these messages.
Welcome to this week's Read This Next with Crystal and Nicole. This week we are talking about the classics. So none of these are super new. Some of them are relatively new, but most of them are like, I learned about these in high school, but they're really good. So check them out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So Crystal, just so people know a little bit about you, when did you start at the library and what's your position? Like, what do you do?
I started on March 28th, 2009. Yes, I remember the date. I was supposed to start 2 days before, but there was a snowstorm. So I got pushed to the Thursday. And I am a library technician, much like yourself.
Yeah. And where would, like, what do you normally, what's a day-to-day thing that you would do? And you work mostly at County Park, right?
Yes, right now I work mostly at County Park, and day to day, I mean, we're doing the no contact holds pickup, so sometimes I'm filling in there. Quite often I help people do technology stuff, right now just mainly over the phone, but back before COVID times I would do one-on-one sessions in the librarian office, and I would help people with their iPads, get books, learn how to use those things. Sometimes I would do children's programs, sometimes I do more administrative stuff, a big mix, which I really like working at the small branches.
You're a jack of all trades at the small branches.
Jill of all trades.
Oh, a Jill, that works. You're a Crystal of all trades.
Yes.
Okay, then let's go into our highlight. So do you want to start?
Yeah, so one book that I recently read was called The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby is F. Scott Fitzgerald's third book. It stands as his supreme achievement of his career, and it's about the Jazz Age, and it's been acclaimed by generations of all readers. The story's about the fabulous, wealthy Jay Gatsby and his new love for the new, beautiful Daisy Buchanan. And there's lavish parties on Long Island, and yeah, that's it. So
Romance,
that
intrigue, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you've read this one?
Yeah, I read it a few months ago, I think, when I was in quarantine. Well, I listened to it because I'm a big audiobook reader. So I like doing that when I do crafts or playing video games and all that.
Double tasking. I love it. I read this one. I don't think I actually ended up reading it in high school, but I read it afterwards. And for people who aren't like, I love classics, honestly, this is a pretty good one because it's got a lot of really good characters, and it's told from one person's perspective who's kind of an outsider into it, but it's really neat. And don't trust the movie. It's a lot different, and not a lot different plot-wise, but it's got different kinds of descriptions. I liked the book a lot better.
I haven't watched the movie, but I need to. But what I found interesting, because again, I also didn't read it in high school. I just recently read it. It was always one of those, all the glitz and glam and how awesome the 20s are. And to me, the whole book was trying to like bring that down. It's like, no, materialism does not carry with you in death. I won't give away all the book, but it makes actually a point about how superficial all these materialisms just go away.
Absolutely. I like the cover. I'll insert an image here. Yay.
It's true. I know someone has a shirt with it on it, and it's a really neat shirt. Yeah.
Oh, that's probably from outofprint.com. So if someone's interested in getting literature stuff, outofprint.com has a lot of good stuff on there. The movie's directed by Baz Luhrmann, who also did the Romeo and Juliet, like modern Romeo and Juliet, also has Leonardo DiCaprio in it, which is a masterpiece.
Yes, I actually remember that. I did watch that one in high school.
That one's wild. I love it. That one made the scene in Romeo and Juliet where they're like, I bite my thumb at you, sir, made so much more sense in that movie. Yes. Way better. Okay, so I'll go into the second highlight. We've got The Color Purple by Alice Walker. So this book is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award. And I do like the cover. It's very pretty. Anyways, here's the description. A powerful cultural touchstone of modern American literature, The Color Purple depicts the lives of African American women in early 20th century rural Georgia. Separated as girls, sisters Celie and Nettie sustain their loyalty to and hope in each other across time, distance, and silence. Through a series of letters spanning 20 years, first from Celie to God and then the sisters to each other, despite the unknown, the novel draws readers into its rich and memorable portrayals of Celie, Nettie, Shug Avery, and Sophia and their experience. The Color Purple broke the silence around domestic and sexual abuse, narrating the lives of women through their pain and struggle, companionship and growth, resilience and bravery. Deeply compassionate and beautifully imagined, Alice Walker's epic carries readers on a spirit-affirming journey towards redemption and love.
Yes, this is yet another one I've also read.
You're a classics lover.
I have been. I've been reading lots. And this one wasn't on audiobook. At least I couldn't find it on the services I subscribe to. Mm-hmm. So I actually physically read the paper book for once in my life. And it's so interesting how you see the character developing throughout the book, and how she, like, you could see in her grammatical, like the way she writes her style of grammar, and how it improves over time, and how her thoughts progress. And I found that really interesting.
So you liked the book?
It was pretty good. I didn't like it as much as some of the other ones on here, but I'm glad that I read it.
Mm-hmm. I've only heard good things about that one, and it is on my to read list. I find it hard to pick up any book, never mind like a classic. So because I'm like, I'd like a light snack, not a full meal of a book today.
Yeah, and of course with this one it mentions the sexual abuse, so that can be kind of difficult as well.
A little bit heavier.
Yeah.
But it's an important read.
Exactly, and I don't regret reading it at all.
Was this the one with a LGBTQ relationship in it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so check it out for that as well. Lots of representation in this one, which is unusual for classics. We need to, in my opinion, start getting away from the canon that is literature being mostly William Shakespeare.
Oh, I think in high school, every single year I had to do a play by him, and it's like, why that? Like, I can understand one or two, but why? Why so much of him?
Yeah. All right, next one. I think you wanted to read.
Yes, I'm halfway through this one as well. It's called Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. So it's about these 4 young ladies that are about age 12 to 17. They're all sisters, and it's the Civil War, and they're living with their mom. Their dad is out in the battlefields as a chaplain, and it's just about them kind of surviving and getting work done while learning different lessons, and little just day-to-day things happen. They become friends with the young man, and there's morals at the end of every chapter, so it's a really wholesome type of read. And I think the dad is in the Union Army, which is kind of interesting. So I'm listening to this after I read Gone with the Wind, which is from the Confederate side, so it was kind of interesting to read from the Union side instead.
That's interesting, like to read one after the other, because you're like, oh, same time period.
Yep. Yeah, and totally different. Like Gone with the Wind's in Georgia where it's smoking hot, and then this is somewhere up north where it's like snowy and it's Christmas, and there's a poor family they help out that are just like freezing, and it was so interesting, the contrast.
That's awesome. I think I read that one a very long time ago. I want to say in elementary school, but it was very good. And I know for those who are interested in reading classics that have been turned into movies, we all know that this one was just turned into a movie with a star-studded cast of Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet. I love saying his name.
Nice. I have the movie on hold, the new one. I'm 20 something in line, so people should put that DVD on hold.
Yeah, get it on hold, because the sooner you put it on hold, the sooner you'll get it.
Exactly. I hope we get a bunch of copies.
I know. Clearly people really want to see it if you're 20th.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, next Next and last for our highlights, we have Green Grass Running Water by Thomas King. I like the cover. It's very interesting, and I like the it's very organic looking with the green and the orange. Okay. Strong, sassy women and hard-headed men, all searching for the middle ground between Native American tradition and the modern world, perform an elaborate dance of approach and avoidance in this magical rollicking tale by Cherokee author Thomas King. Alberta, oh, that's the name of the character. I got it. Alberta is a university professor who would like to trade her 2 boyfriends for a baby, but no husband. Lionel is 40 and still sells televisions for a patronizing boss. Eli and his log cabin stand in the way of a profitable dam project. These 3 and others are coming to the Blackfoot Reservation for the Sundance, and there they will encounter 4 Indian elders and their companion, the trickster Coyote, and nothing in the small town of Blossom will ever be the same again. That one is I think in most of our IKCs in the library, and I put it on hold because I wanted to read it. And I think the cover that I have on, like, we always print out a sheet every week that has the covers on them. The one that I have is actually a different cover, which I'll insert here, and I really like it. It's like green or purple, and it's got like a wolf, like, looks like it's made of wind running across it. But have you read this one?
No, actually, but I have read other Thomas King's, and he's very interesting the way he writes things. I remember this one short story that he wrote. I think it was in a book called One Good Story, That One. Mm-hmm. Like One Good Story, That One is the title. Okay. And it was about a lady who is Blackfoot, from the Blackfoot tribe, and she was going from Canada to the States or vice versa, and at the border they're like, okay, well, what nationality are you? Because, you know, whenever you cross the border, and she's like, Blackfoot. It's like, and the border agent's like, okay, are you Canadian or American? No, Blackfoot. That's the only answer she would get. And it made a point, like, that the borders that we create, or, you know, not us too, but, you know, the ones that Europeans, yes, the ones that they have created don't line up with traditional lands, and why shouldn't the tradition stand? And he's a very thought-provoking author, I find.
Yeah, it sounds really good. And the one that the Green Grass Running Water sounds, I like that it's going to have several different people that it kind of focuses on, which I like that in books. I like books that have multiple perspectives for it.
Yeah, as long as it's like, okay, now this person's talking, because there's been some books that I've read and I'm like, okay, who's talking right now?
Mm-hmm. It gets a little confusing.
Can. Yeah, check it out in our Indigenous Knowledge Centers. That's the IKCs Nicole mentioned.
Right.
It's chock full of stuff. They're so good.
Yeah. And if you're looking for teen stuff specifically, that's in the IKC section. On the Teens Read page on the website, we have lists that include everything that's available there, because sometimes it's hard to differentiate between what's an adult fiction versus YA fiction. So that way it's a little easier to find them.
Oh, okay. So is this one a YA then? A young adult?
This one is not. It's an adult.
Oh, okay.
But adult for... like what defines adult and all that, as we both know, depends on the publisher.
Oh yeah, like I think about The Hobbit by Tolkien, and that was originally published as a children's novel, and most of the time you see it in the adult now. You don't see it often in the kids.
It's the same with Harry Potter. Like Harry Potter, by the end of it, should not be in the children's section, but it always is. That's because it starts off that way.
Mm-hmm. Grows
and
with
you don't
the
want to
reader.
split them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's go into our recommendations. And I have a lot to say about mine, and I know you have a lot to say about yours. So I want to hear all the details.
Okay.
You can go first.
So I listened to Gone with the Wind on audiobook during quarantine, all 49 hours of it.
That's insane.
It's the longest one I've ever listened to.
How long did it take you? Well, I mean, 49 hours, but...
I think over 2 months, but like a lot of it I did in one chunk. Because again, if I'm just in quarantine at home, I remember like uncombed hair, playing Spyro the Dragon, listening to it with my earphones in.
Oh,
I listened like 10 hours in one day.
Nice.
But not over 2 months. So the description of Gone with the Wind, I'll just read it off here, is Scarlett O'Hara, the beautiful spoiled daughter of a well-to-do Georgia plantation owner, must use every means at her disposal to claw her way out of poverty she finds herself in after Sherman's march to the sea. So obviously 49 hours, that's kind of a really short summary of it.
Very. They're like, snip it.
Yeah, I've heard this being called as one of the first teen novels before teen novels were a thing.
Interesting.
I know, because Scarlett, I think, was 16 or 17 when the novel began, and then she was in her late 20s when the novel ended. So it's a real coming of age story where she first grows up in, you know, the antebellum period before the Civil War, her just wearing big poofy dresses and going to all the parties and having all the beaux, as they called them back then, like boyfriends, and falling in love with this one guy named Ashley and wanting him so much and blah, blah, blah. And she's thrust into the Civil War, which she doesn't give two bits about. And
good censoring.
I said bits, B-I-T-S. Basically, she didn't care about politics. She thought that was a man's world, and yet she comes of age. She becomes a business owner, even though that everybody in society was like, that's not appropriate for you to be a business owner. You're a woman. She ends up, you know, going into the dirt and planting and picking cotton and other crops, which was not what a society lady did back then. She really like came of age, and she really just
became her own person.
Became her own person and worked hard. However,
here comes the big however.
Here comes the big however. I know it was written in the 30s, but it's terribly racist. Even for that age. I'm not going to excuse the fact it was written 80 years ago about how racist it was. Any particular Black character that's in there, it's not even that the white characters were racist. It's about their narration of the way that they described Black characters when they described Mammy and she puffed out her bottom lip like a big black ape in the African jungle. I'm like,
that's really bad.
Yeah. So and you gotta, with Margaret Mitchell, the author, it's really interesting because she was born in, I think, 1901, and she grew up going to different old plantations and sitting on like old men's knees and being told about the Civil War because they were Confederate soldiers and, like, you know, this is this battle and this is how it was before, and it was so amazing before the Civil War, before the Yankees came from up north. And she didn't even know that the Confederacy lost the war till she was 10.
Oh,
so
whoa.
Yeah, so there's a huge bias there that she looks back at that pre-Civil War era so romantically, and she just is like, oh yeah, these Yankees from up north came, they took away all the slaves and made life miserable for us. And even though that we were hardworking people, it's like, well, you're kind of ignoring a whole class of people who picked your crops under slavery.
Who were hardworking people and now have it better. Yeah, so if you're going to read Gone with the Wind, very important to critically read it, not just read it as fact. Because like you said, it was 80 years ago, and even for that, it's quite yikes when it comes to its portrayals.
Yes, and that's why the movie, it came under scrutiny in the last few months, quite interestingly. It was taken off of Netflix for a bit, and then it was put back on. Now, I just looked it up a couple days ago, and it's put back on, but it's put a disclaimer about, and this movie's known for its racist portrayal of Black people, and I thought that was a good compromise, you know, because we don't want to endorse things in the movie, but gotta know. Interesting, it was the first movie in which a Black actress won an Academy Award. Hattie McDaniel, who was portraying Mammy, she won the Academy Award.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And another interesting fun fact is the one actress, Olivia de Havilland, she just passed away like 6 weeks ago, and she portrayed Melanie Hamilton. She was 104. She just died.
Oh my goodness, she lasted. Good for her.
Her other co-actors died in the 60s, so she lived like a whole nother lifetime. So that's crazy.
That is crazy. She lived like 50 extra, 60?
60 extra years.
That's insane. Wow. Okay, so I haven't read Gone with the Wind. Ew.
You don't have 49 extra hours to devote to the audiobook, you mean?
I don't have time for that.
Next quarantine.
Oh yeah, maybe that would be good. Just like headphones in, cruising. Then I can talk to you about it more. Okay, so I'll talk about my recommendation. It's called After Dachau by Daniel Quinn. So Daniel Quinn, have you read anything by him?
No, but I've heard of him. He wrote a book called Ishmael.
Yep.
I think he's a Jewish writer.
I'm not sure if he's Jewish. He could be. Okay, so After Dachau is a book. It's an alternate history book, which if you're not as like classics, a lot of time can be very dense with language and very kind of outdated. Like they can be very big and hard to read. I read this one in grade 11 in my English class, and it was the best book I had read in high school. So the basic idea is there's this guy. Let me see if I can see his name. What's his name? Can't even remember the main character's name.
I don't know.
Nope, that's fine. Whatever. The main character is a believer in past lives, and he's like trying to prove that they existed. And so he meets this person who's freaking out and claiming that they are a different person because they've woken up from, I think it was in a coma. It's been a while since I've read it, but and she's claiming that she is a Black woman, and to us that makes perfect sense because like duh, she would be. And then there's a little twist where you find out, oh, like you don't realize it at first, but every character is described using like descriptors that you would describe white people with. So it's like they had fair skin and blonde hair and blue eyes, and you find out that this is what the world would have been like had the Axis won instead of the Allies. And if Hitler had won, and suddenly everybody is white. So this person who thinks she was what used to be a Black woman is now in a white person's body, and everybody she sees around her is also white. So he's learning about this alternate history because to him, as far as he's aware, nothing bad had happened because they didn't know about this war that went on. So it's a very interesting look at how we remember history and how history is written by the winners. And it was really, really good. I just want to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything.
Yeah, because it sounds so interesting. I took like a half a class recently, and it talked about like the Mayans and all them in South America and how their entire culture was just decimated, and we know nothing, very little about that.
Absolutely.
And I think about situations like this where it's supposed to, I think the descriptor said 2,000 years past Nazi Germany and how that would have been remembered. And, you know, every once in a while you're like, oh, the Mayans, yeah, they don't exist. That's really sad. And it's like, you know, we know about Nazi Germany and how much destruction's happened. It's like, you don't know about that. I could just imagine how
it would be
interesting.
Insane.
Yeah.
And I just think about it makes it when I read it, I was riding the bus. I was actually doing a co-op placement here, and I was riding the bus to here, and I remember getting off the bus and telling the person I was working with, I was like, I just read this book. It had this amazing like there were revelations through it, and it completely blew my mind when I was reading it because it was not what I was expecting at all. It made me start thinking like, what other, and I know this is the case, like obviously history is written by the winners, but like what else are we not hearing? I kind of think about like the War of 1812, right? Like not Canadians, I think it was the British that were living in Canada, I think it was, won the war against America. But if you ask Americans, they don't really know about the War of 1812, and if they do, they don't think Canada burned the White House down.
Yeah, they don't know that.
Yeah, so it kind of makes me think about like what else are we missing, and it was just such a good book.
And I've heard
Highly
such
recommend.
good things about Daniel Quinn, and I looked him up just today, and I guess he passed away pretty recently, like 2 years
Really
ago. Yeah, he lived a long life. He was 80 something, I think.
good.
But yeah, I find like Jewish history so interesting and stuff like this, and this like mixes fantasy, it sounds like,
Mm-hmm.
with history, and that it kind of reminds me, I haven't read it yet, but that one book that was popular a few years ago, I think it was called Life After Life by Armstrong. I'll have to
I'll
look
look
up
it up. You
something
keep
and put
talking
it
about
here.
it.
Yeah, and I haven't read it, but it's about like the same soul who's reincarnated so many times, and how that soul is like, baby's born in the middle of winter and the baby dies, and that soul immediately goes to the next person. And looking at reincarnation, not disrespectfully, but in a fantasy kind of setting, and
Mhm.
mixing with this alternate history in Nazi Germany, what Daniel Quinn does, I gotta read that. I remember logging into Goodreads and I was like, boop, gotta read that one.
Want to read. Yeah, take a you should put it on hold. And it looks like the one that you were talking about is called Life After Life by Kate Atkinson.
Oh, I had the A right.
Yes, you did. So check that one out. It sounds like when we got into our personal ones, we're like, I have so much to say. It's
Yeah.
great. Yes. So thank you so much, Crystal, for being on our episode.
Yeah.
Yay! So for the viewers, don't forget we are here every Friday at 2 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. Please check out our show notes if you're looking for any of the titles you may have missed. You can find them at www.tbplofftheshelf.com. And we will see you all next week. Bye!